Welcome to the Perfect Pairing Podcast. The cigar of the week this week is the Maceda Torpedo.
But before we get to that, if you don't already know us, my name is Chris, and I am the whiskey expert and the cigar noob.
And my name is Adam, and I'm the cigar expert, but the whiskey noob.
And as Adam mentioned, today we're finding the perfect pairing for this Maceda Torpedo cigar. We've got Irish whiskey, we've got almost bourbon, kind of like bourbon, and we've got rye whiskey. So we've got it all. We're trying everything with this one. And I think that's because I wasn't sure what was going to go with it. I just took some shots at it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's a good point. It's a good kind of segue into this cigar. A lot of you guys, if you're a seasoned cigar smoker, you've probably never seen this. This is kind of an ultra boutique cigar brand. Not a lot of people have heard about it. But Maceda is, I have known their cigars for 3 years. And I've known that they make a great product. And so when we, started building our lineup for this month of June, we're in. Yeah, this is still June. Mm-hmm. I wanted to make sure we had somebody represented in there that was kind of out of left field, that was a little different and something maybe nobody's heard of before. Because, as I always say, sometimes your next cigar that you try is your new favorite cigar. And that's because that has to be true. I know it's not a super catchy phrase, but like it's one of those things that's just so true. Like everybody thinks like, oh, this is my favorite cigar. Well, you don't know that. You haven't had that one.
I love that motto. Yeah, that's so relatable for me because people always say like, what's your favorite? And I'm like, dude, I could not tell you. I just answered a question on Instagram yesterday where they said, what's your favorite pairing? And I didn't say there's no such thing. I said I haven't found my favorite yet. So it's exactly like you said. It's like could still be out there,
Yep,
it's like you gotta hunt for it.
And I think that's part of the fun. It's definitely part of the reason that we have this in existence, guys. So
absolutely.
That's the whole point of why we're here today. So if you aren't interested in that, you can go ahead and leave.
Yeah. I mean, if you got 52 shots at finding a favorite pairing every year, odds of you getting something over a 9 are pretty high, I feel like.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
So
and we're picking quality products, too. It's not like we're, just tossing out some, like, what's your favorite cigar, an acid?
Just kidding. Oh, you had to go there. Okay. It is, and I had one last week, and it was fantastic. So might have had something to do with the fact that I was on a beach, though. That always improves the quality of the cigar.
Definitely. I was just at the beach last week in Mexico. But I had my Dennis Rodman cigar that we created, just kind of celebrating, like, the achievement of the year and everything, launching that cigar. And I was like, damn, I did not remember how good this was. And it's very light, so it went with kind of the Mexican Dos Equis spear. I was like, this is pretty good.
Oh, yeah. Pairing. That's awesome. That's the greatest. I mean, it's all about what's going on around you whenever you're having it. So that's the best part of doing all of this. And, the podcast specifically makes it really nice for me to actually focus on the cigar. I found that this is like probably my favorite way to smoke a cigar is on this show because I'm actually any other time that I'm doing it, I'm like smoking a cigar and I'm doing this and I'm looking at my phone and I'm doing that. So shameless plug for the Perfect Pairing Club, or if you just have your own cigars at home, light one up during the podcast. I promise you it's a great way to smoke the cigar. It makes it way more enjoyable.
Yeah, it's you're focusing on the flavors, you're focusing on the notes that you wouldn't identify if you were distracted. I think that's a great point. That's I enjoy hanging out here and doing this podcast with you too, Chris. I appreciate you saying that.
Absolutely, man. That being said, let's dig into these.
Let's
Today,
drink.
We've got the Dead Rabbit Irish whiskey, which we have had on the show before. Some of you guys might remember it from our St. Patty's Day episode, if I recall correctly. So this is an Irish whiskey. It's relatively inexpensive. I think it's in like that $40 range. If I remember correctly, we enjoyed it with the cigar that we had, and I wanted to give it another shot at a new cigar. So that's basically the only reason I picked it. I was like, I really like that Dead Rabbit. Let's throw something else at it and see what happens.
Well, and I think a whole point too here to note is, so I do remember the cigar we had it with. It was the Aladino Candela. So we had it with a Candela cigar. So it's we haven't put it up against your run-of-the-mill cigars. Not that this is a boring run-of-the-mill cigar, but I'm saying it's like, it's like a flavored cigar. It's not a flavored cigar, but it's a rare cigar. For those of you that don't know what a candela is, go back and watch episode 1 of the Perfect Pairing podcast, and you'll get to see that. Or no, 2. It was episode 2? It was in the first month.
It was one of the first. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
first
it wasn't
month.
episode 1. That was Artista Midnight.
Oh,
But
yeah.
yeah, one of the first ones. I think it might have been the second one that we did, and I do remember it pairing well. But yeah, I'm excited to try it with this one and see kind of how it's playing, and just dive in.
Yeah, plus based on the first couple of puffs, I haven't drank the whiskey yet, but this is going to be a pretty different pairing experience from a candela. This is a fairly different flavor profile, so we're going to see a totally different side of the coin, I think, and see what happens.
Definitely. I think what everybody's going to notice if you're in the Perfect Pairing Club is June was a little bit of a heater. It came with some little bit of heat, little oomph, little strength. We're going to go through a run of cigars that definitely is going to, make a little impact. So make sure you're sitting down. Make sure you have a meal. That I would highly recommend, because they some of these pack a punch, and this one I would say is not a 5 out of 5, but it's a 4 out of 5 on strength and body, but it's smooth. That's what I'll say. It's not unapproachable harshness. It's just, you can tell, like, it's got some body to it. It's got, I feel like it's definitely, I've felt it with whiskey, and I'm the whiskey noob. Like, there's certain whiskeys where it's not like spicy, it's not harsh, but you're like, man, what's that proof? You just like, that's that look that somebody goes, wait a second, I don't know what I'm getting into here. And it's the same thing with this cigar.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad that you said that, because part of me was like, am I just being an extra noob right now? Like, this has got a lot of body to it, and it does. And if you like that full-bodied experience, which especially when I'm in the mood for it, for me, a cigar with like this much spice, this much body, it's kind of like a peated scotch, where it's like when I'm in the mood for that extra, that oomph, that's what I go for. And that's exactly how this cigar is tasting right now. It's got the wood notes, but it's got the peppers, it's got the spice, that freshly cracked pepper type of a flavor to it. And first thoughts about this pairing, it's interesting because of the fact that it's not steamrolling the dead rabbit. I expected it to just, when I puffed the cigar, I was like, oh no, what have I done? I thought I'm not even going to taste this dead rabbit, but it's not. And if you know Irish whiskey, you know it can be a lot lighter, a little bit more subtle, but I'm still tasting the Irish whiskey. Not sure if I'm tasting too much uniqueness or different things going on quite yet, but I haven't really dug into it very far to say that yet.
Yeah, I mean, on my end, I would definitely agree. I thought it was going to be an interesting matchup. I've had this cigar actually plenty of times, like a lot, recently. So in kind of preparation to remind my palate of what it was. And I was pleasantly surprised that it played well with this Irish whiskey, because I thought it would steamroll it, and somehow it's not even really changing it at all. And that's throwing me off like way to left field. Like, and that's why I apologize. I almost felt like I was trying to think through, is anything happening while I was talking right there? So that was a little slow, but because I'm sitting here looking at them like, why? This is not a, like, in the cigar is changing a little bit. I think it's adding a little bit of sweetness to the cigar, which I'm enjoying. So I think this is an antagonistic pairing for sure. And one of the like most authentic antagonistic pairings in a good way. Again, I do like what it's doing to the cigar, but authentic in the sense that the whiskey's not changing, and somehow we found it with a light whiskey and a strong cigar.
Yeah, 100, dude. This is a killer example of. Oh, sorry, had to clear my throat there. No, but this is a killer example of, if you think that cigars are always going to weigh down whiskeys, and you think, because I used to think this, a cigar is just so powerful that it's always going to dampen the whiskey a little bit. We've seen that it doesn't always do that, especially with the pairings we've had on the show. But this is a great example where this whiskey not very full-bodied. The cigar, very full-bodied, and yet you're still tasting the whiskey. Like Adam said, it's not really changing, which I did not see coming. I think this is the second Irish whiskey that's happened with. I think that also happened with Bushmills in a different cigar. I don't remember what the cigar was. I can look that up, though.
You know, let me throw a twist out here just to play devil's advocate. So I was looking at the proof on it.
Mm-hmm.
It says, it's 88 proof.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe like that's so light. And I was like, man, what? It felt stronger than that to me. So maybe there's a little spice coming over from the cigar because it feels, but I don't remember. I haven't had dead whiskey or dead whiskey. I haven't had dead whiskey. I haven't had dead wabbit in a while. So maybe that's what it is, but it's definitely interesting.
No, that's a really good point, though. It's hard. I can't decipher if I am thinking that it's stronger because I expected it to get weaker, or if it is actually stronger. But I could totally see that perspective of it, where it's like, for 44% ABV, this is got a lot of body, a lot of flavor to it, a little bit of a zing even on your palate.
Yeah, 100% agree with that.
So now,
interesting.
I have no idea where this next one's going to go. Sometimes these are very unpredictable, and that's actually the most fun, in my personal opinion. Our next pairing we've got is Michters American Small Batch. It's their unblended American whiskey. We've also had this on one other time, and I mentioned before, so this is, you do everything you need to make a bourbon, but then instead of aging it in brand new charred oak containers, which you need in order to have a bourbon, they take it and they put it in barrels that previously held bourbon. So that's what makes it just an unblended American whiskey. And it typically has bourbony notes with a little bit more of a spice or a zing to it for me personally. Really nice body, really nice flavor. Very, very different from the Dead Rabbit, though, so I have no idea what's about to happen.
And I'm not going to lie. I'll either just find something to talk about or talk about the cigar some more or something. But there's definitely a spice on my palate that's sitting there. And I feel like it's from the whiskey. It's almost a tingle. And because I haven't had this whiskey yet. I haven't taken a sip. I'm sitting on this because I feel like the cigar, I'm not getting as much like just full bodiedness as I was getting right away. So maybe there's some sort of weird muteness that happened in the cigar after the Dead Rabbit. That was a weird play. That was a very interesting pairing to start with. And I like you said, I always love starting out of kind of left field and then seeing where it goes. It makes for a much more exciting episode too than if we're both like, dang, yeah, dang. So this one would be interesting. I'd be interested to know if any of you out there are in the Discord, pop in a pairing that you had with this cigar. If you have some Irish whiskey and you haven't lit up yet or whatever, or you can just try it again because everybody got 2 of these in their June pack.
That's right.
Yep, everybody got 2 of these. So now, for this month only, or it's already passed for those of you guys that aren't in the Perfect Pairing Club, but we had a double cigar month. So everybody got 2 of each of the cigar of the weeks. So 8 cigars for $30. Pretty good price. If you feel like you missed out, we will have surprise double cigar months. Not often, but we will have surprise double cigar months in the future. And if you want 10% off, you can do PPP10 for 10% off at shopdreamercigars.com. But anyways, going back, I did a pretty good filibuster there.
I appreciate that. I was really trying to figure out what was going on with the cigar, so it was much needed from my side.
It kind of just took on a life of its own. I forgot for a second that I was doing a little filibuster, but this cigar is very, very. It's playing in a lot of different directions.
Yeah, and I'm going to let you do some tasting here because I do want to comment on what you said about the spiciness. I feel like you're right, and I wasn't sure if maybe my palate was just getting used to it. Like maybe, the first puff was just a little bit more spice, and then I got used to it. But I think you're right. I almost think, we said the Dead Rabbit gained a little spice. It almost transferred from the cigar to the Dead Rabbit a little bit. So that's one where after we do a couple more and our palates are really, really warmed up, I can't wait to go back and try it and see what I'm thinking. But to speak to the Michters a little bit, I think it toned down the spice of the cigar even more, and this might be because the Michters has its own spicy body to it a little bit. Nothing crazy, but it's got some zing to it. And I thought, in my opinion, it made the cigar a lot more towards the tame, sweet side of it, almost like a graham cracker type flavor. The Michters, I can't figure out exactly what's happening to it yet. I know I used to get more of a black pepper from it than I'm getting right now, so maybe that's the case. I have sat down my cigar for a little while now, and I'm going to taste the Michters without puffing the cigar and see what's going on. But so far, my gut reaction was I noticed more of a fruity sweetness from the Michters than I had previously gotten, for sure. Because previously, fruit wasn't really one of the forefront flavors that I thought of when I thought of the Michters American. So far, that's what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I would say first off, right off the bat, I'm getting the same thing out of the cigar. That like it's a much softer like graham cracker kind of flavor in the cigar. I think it mutes that spiciness and going to the Michters, I'm getting a lot of the same. And I don't. I'm glad you said it because I was probably gonna just lie and be like, no, it's not. No, I'm kidding. I wouldn't have lied. I'd have just been like, I don't know, Chris, what's going on?
Right.
Like, I'm just gonna defer to you because this whiskey is throwing me off because I have no idea why. It seems really mellow.
Mm-hmm.
What
Agreed.
I don't have the bottle next to me. What is the proof on this?
That is a great question. It is 83.4 proof, so it's pretty low proof.
Okay. Maybe that makes more sense.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I think I had some Michter's rye recently, and maybe that's kind of where my like subconscious was in my head.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
which definitely has a little bit more of that spice. But okay, that makes more sense. Now I almost need to go back again now that my expectations are different.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's not as spicy as like a rye. The Michter's unblended is typically not as spicy as like a rye, but I do think it's being even more muted by this cigar. I think something strange is going on. We've got two very different types of pairings here. With the Dead Rabbit and the cigar, I felt like the Dead Rabbit was holding its own, which is a real myth buster for me because a myth that I used to thoroughly believe in was a cigar is going to trample over most whiskeys that you put it up against, especially if they're weak whiskeys. But the Dead Rabbit, I felt like, held its own against the cigar. Now we've got the flip-flop where I'm like, the Michters is actually being muted a little bit by the cigar, and the cigar is turning into this really sweet, interesting cigar, which is kind of the flip side of that coin. I also used to think, right in that same vein, cigars with whiskey, the cigar is always going to get amplified and have this, real punchy flavor to it. And that's not what's happening here. It's it's mellowed out. The whiskey's mellowed out. And this has really become kind of like we've mentioned before, like your nice weekday sipper where they're both just pleasant. Neither of them are too harsh. Neither of them are, really attacking my palate or my nasal passages. They just taste sweet and they taste pretty nice.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'm super intrigued. This Michters is super throwing me off, even more than the first one, which is weird because I feel like the flavor has changed, like almost completely. Like it not like strength, not spice. Like I'm talking like just the flavors of the whiskey. I feel like are completely different than what. Again, maybe it was a little expectations or something going in, but we've had this before, and I thought I knew what I was getting into, and this is not. I'll have to go back and do another pairing. Maybe I'll toss it on the Discord for this episode. Well, we have the same Discord, everybody, for all episodes. But I'll have to go back and refer to this episode and say, hey, guys, I had the Michters with a different cigar of the week, and here's what I thought. Because it's really, like, I almost am at a loss for words because I'm like, I'm actually a little disappointed is where I'm going. It's not, I don't know why. Maybe it's my palate, right? That it's just not my cup of tea for whatever reason right now. But I do like what it's doing that to the cigar. So interesting pairing for me. I'm very intrigued to go to number 3 and see where these land in the rankings and ratings.
Yeah. Let's jump into number 3 here. But last comment on what you were just saying is I do agree with you that it's changing pretty drastically. Like I felt like I never got fruit from the Michters before, and I felt like it had a little bit of a fruitiness. Are you getting though, like the part that you're not really liking? Is the Michters leaving like a little bit of a bitterness, like almost like you licked an envelope or something, like on your tongue afterward?
Yeah, yeah,
That
yeah.
okay. I
It's a
wasn't sure if it
little,
was
yeah.
just me, but I was getting that a
No,
little bit.
it's like a, it's, and I hate to say it because I'm sitting here like I like Michter's, I thought, but
Right.
I think there's something combining with these two flavors that's leaving just a little bit of a, I mean, it's not a terrible taste. It's not like, oh, but it's a little unpleasant aftertaste
Mm-hmm.
when not in the cigar, but in the whiskey. And so there's something at play for sure.
Yep. No, I agree with you because I felt that a little bit when I was like, I
Okay.
don't know if that's just my palate or what I ate for dinner or what, but
Yeah,
I
we were both
definitely
so
see that.
hesitant on it.
Yeah, I know.
We're like,
Well, it was a
this is
subtle one.
good. Yeah.
It didn't like
Yeah.
jump out, but I will say I love what it did to the cigar because I felt like if you think this cigar has too much body and you're in the perfect pairing club, so you have two of them and you're like, that first one, it burned me up a little bit. You throw it with something like a Michter's and I think it mellows it out really nicely for sure.
Definitely. I'd
So
agree with that.
pairing number 3, we've had on here before, and if you listen to that episode, you know that I am a fan of it. Barrell Seagrass is our third pairing. This is a rye whiskey that is then finished in Martinique rum, Madeira, and apricot brandy barrels. So 3 different finishing barrels gives it a wild, fruity, interesting flavor profile, and I can't wait to see what happens because if I'm not mistaken, the cigar that we had this with before was a little bit lighter. It was it was the Mexican cigar, right? Like Mexican binder filler wrapper, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, yeah, I think it was the Casa 1910.
Yes, I think that's what we had this with. And this cigar has more of a body to it, a little bit more of a spice, and rye has a spice to it. So I can't wait to see what happens. That's what I'm trying to get across here.
No, yeah, I haven't taken a sip yet, but I was definitely excited to see this one on here because I felt like it was going to be good. I actually do think I've had this pairing. Oh, now I'm intrigued for everybody in the audio version. Chris just had a very excited face. Um, so yeah, I think I've had this pairing back here in my lounge before, but not intentionally. I was just back here working on my laptop and whatever, or watching a show and just relaxing. So I think maybe there's a subconscious in me that's like, you want this pairing. Like it's just
Mm-hmm.
the Barrell Seagrass was calling to me, but I can't wait anymore. So you're just gonna have to talk because your face looked like it was delicious.
Yes, and I got to start with my internal biases, guys. You know I love Barrell Seagrass, but here's why I love this pairing so much. Everything I love about Barrell Seagrass got cranked up to 11. And I love doing pairings with whiskeys that I've had a bunch of because I know what it tastes like. And so now I know what has changed about it. I know it really well. And everything I love about Barrell Seagrass, those barrel finishes got cranked up, but they didn't outweigh the rye, which is what I love about Barrell Seagrass is you get a balance of the rye with the finishes. They don't drown out the rye flavor. And with the cigar, all of them got cranked up. Like immediately finishes, the fruit, the wine, the brandy, all cranked up. And then after I swallow the finish, it's like, ooh, there's the rye. It's got like a nice like baking spice, almost a little bit more bready than it normally is. And then with that, the cigar got better, in my opinion, as well. It wasn't quite as muted as it was with that Michters. It was more, it had that sweetness that it had with the Michters. It still had some of that exciting spice. They're really playing with each other nicely, in my opinion. And I was very relieved because I set up these tastings. And so if all 3 of them were like, oh, nothing's really happening, that would have stunk. So I was really relieved.
No, I think you have a great point, and my first instinct is it's kind of a spice bomb on both ends. Like you really your whole mouth just gets that like tingle. Like I'm even getting it on like kind of the sides of my lips. Like there's a whole spice going in here. Um, that if you're a spice guy, we just found your favorite pairing. Like if you love a little black pepper, cracked pepper type cigar, and you love that nice rye spice on any sort of whiskey, yeah, you're gonna love. I mean, you're gonna sit here and just savor in the spiciness. On
That's
my
where I'm at
side,
right now.
yeah, yeah, there you go.
Oh yeah.
On my side, I feel like it's a little too much. I feel like it's a
Okay.
little too overwhelming on the spice end for me, and I think it mutes some of the pleasant flavors that I get out of the Barrel Seagrass. Because I started with the Barrel Seagrass, and then I went over to the cigar, and that was like, poof. And
Mm-hmm.
then I went back to the Barrel Seagrass, and then I just had poof. Again. It was just spice, and I was like, oh, where is that little kind of sweetness that it starts out with on the tongue?
Mm-hmm.
Like I felt like it got taken away a little too much for me.
Okay.
Um, but maybe maybe I was a little fresh, so I'll go back and forth and see. But yeah, interesting. I mean I think we can both agree that this is our number ones for the day.
Mm-hmm.
But interesting. Now I know we've mentioned it a couple times. Now I really want you guys to go in the Discord because I want to
Mm-hmm.
pause this right now and go like run the table right here behind me and see like, oh, there it is. There's something like because I'm super intrigued. I feel like there's a lot of potential in this cigar because I like the cigar, and I think there's something there. Maybe the Old Navy.
Ooh,
No,
maybe.
it's not Old Navy. Is it Old Navy?
Old line Navy strength.
Old Line Navy. I was like, Old Navy's the
Mm-hmm.
freaking clothing brand.
Mm-hmm.
I was
Mm-hmm.
like, that didn't sound right. Yeah, Old Line, Navy Strength. Yeah, maybe that one um, would be an interesting one to kind of add as a third pairing or a
Yeah.
fourth. But
I
interesting.
do think and this could be a difference of palates. This could definitely be because I like Barrel Seagrass so much. I'm gonna disagree a little bit in that I do still get a lot of the fruitiness of it, which maybe it's because it's so much stronger than the other two whiskeys that we've had. So we had 44%, 42%, and now we've got almost 60%. So we're
Yeah.
jumping to a really high proof whiskey. So maybe that's what's going on. But for me, I am still the fruitiness. I think it's almost just maybe it's antagonistic because I don't know the cigar well enough. Maybe the cigar is staying close to the same, but the barrel is just super elevated in my opinion. Like everything that I like about it is being elevated here. But that's not to discount what you said because that's a really great point for people who don't want something to be a spice bomb, like a higher proof whiskey like that. It is definitely, without any doubt in my mind, it is not mellowing out the Barrel Seagrass. It is not making it more
Nope.
approachable. You have to like that cask strength heat for sure. And then I'll tag on. I think the Old Line is a great pick. I think another one that I have no idea what would happen, but I'm interested would be something very oaky, like either a Woodford double oaked or the Penelope Architect that we've had on before, because that's French oaked. Something with a real rich oaky body. I'd be interested, but not too much proof, so that it
Right.
doesn't do that little amplification that it's doing.
You said something very interesting that I was probably thrown off by the past two pairings that I think is absolutely true. This is antagonistic. The cigar is back to where it
Yeah,
started.
I
It
think
is.
so.
It is. It's. This is that maybe would have been what was throwing me off a little bit because I started with the Barrel Seagrass and went straight to the cigar. And I think right before that, I did go back to the Dead Rabbit for a second because I was super
Mhm.
intrigued by that Michters. I was like, I need a different taste in my mouth real quick, and like I need to kind of understand like these differences here and try and pinpoint what flavor I was getting, and I didn't. But um, I still don't know what's going on with the Michters, so my rating is question mark. No,
Right.
um, but yeah, the cigar is right back to where I really enjoy. It's like it's so hard to describe. I don't have the sophisticated palate that Chris has to explain exactly the flavor that I'm getting, but it's like man, I don't even know how to describe. It's spicy, but it's got that. It's not like a Maduro sweetness. It's spicy, but it's got that just almost like I guess rich earthy tones. Like
Hmm.
it's not like a chocolate, and it's not. I don't think it's super woody, and I don't think maybe there's like a hint of like little nuttiness in there, but I think it's just really rich earth tones, and it's a little underplayed because it has a little spiciness to it.
Mm-hmm. It's almost like if you've ever smelled, this is so specific, but it's almost like a potpourri that's not too floral, but is more towards the earthy type of a flavor. That's kind of what it reminds me of a little bit. I also
Okay, wait a second.
You're not gonna let that one slide, huh?
Did I mention I don't have as a sophisticated palate? But I wouldn't say a sophisticated palate has to do with potpourri, but no, just
I mean the flavor. The flavor's like a potpourri. Is what it's reminding me.
I don't know the last time I tried that, but no, I'm just kidding.
Hey man, I just go straight to whatever comes to mind.
No, you did exactly what I was looking for you to do, was to say something specific that you were getting that I was gonna say, yeah, but you just left me a little dumbfounded. I'm not gonna lie, so it is what it is.
You know, I like to throw stuff out there. Sometimes it sticks. Fig Newton stuck.
There you go.
Did it. I also we got to jump back a little bit here. We didn't do the trivia. We were too excited to get into these
Oh
bottles.
my gosh!
But
Yes, we
I
were.
have a question for you that I think could be our trivia for today.
Oh boy, let's
And
go.
I think I know the answer, but it's been a long time. So let me ask you.
Oh, I hope I know the
When
answer.
people cut, I think you do. When people cut torpedoes, they do something a little different with the cut. And I won't even say what it is, even though I know what the difference is. But why? Like, what is that doing for your experience with the cigar when you cut a torpedo a little differently than how you would cut a normal cigar? You know what I'm getting at?
So you're talking about on a straight cut on a torpedo,
Yes.
you want to do it angled.
Yes.
Well, yeah, okay. Which is ironic because for those of you out there, if we happen to clip this, I'm doing it for the side cam, but you can see I actually did a V cut because
good to know.
I'm very unique. A lot of people look at me like, what? Like we just launched a cigar, the Onward Dreams pyramid, and everybody is like, the dude's cutting this with a torpedo, like, like in all the videos and even the
With a V
DJ,
cut, you mean?
or sorry, yeah, V cut, yeah.
Yeah.
So like I V cutted the torpedo, and so everybody's like, why are you doing a V cut on that? It doesn't make any sense. But I like it. I think it really it exposes enough tobacco, which is the answer. Why do you want to cut a specific cigar at an angle, or a torpedo or a pyramid or anything with a point at a little bit of an angle? It's exposing more tobacco. That's the reason you're allowing a little bit more of that smoke to come out. Now, you can kind of go vice versa. I actually know people that do a punch cut on a torpedo. And how you punch a torpedo is you go through the side of one of, like right next to the tip, you just go through the side. And it provides a very subtle, like kind of slow smoking experience that everybody loves if you love punch cuts. We are faster smokers. A punch cut especially on a torpedo, I would overheat very quickly. I like the V cut. I like a deep V cut on a torpedo because it gives me even more exposed tobacco. You got to think I'm like going halfway and then halfway again, whereas like typically you would just go halfway off the top.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, just that. I mean, like I wouldn't go as crazy as a 45-degree angle, but something like 30, maybe 29. Don't be, you want to be very specific with it. Maybe 28.5 degrees. That was a joke.
Yeah, you got to get out your protractor to get the correct experience, though.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I thought I lost you on that one. I saw your face just looking to the side.
I was trying to have a comeback. I was like, I got something for this.
I was like, Chris, I am not serious. I really hope you're like, I thought you were standing at your cigar like, damn, what angle is that?
I'm ashamed as an engineer to admit this. I was like, what's the thing that measures angles like a ruler? Protractor. I was trying to remember protractor.
Fair enough. But yeah, that is the reason why you'll see some people, if you've seen them at a lounge or just around, they'll slice at a little bit different an angle on their straight cut or their guillotine cut, and just a little bit more exposed tobacco. And what you don't want to do what some people I've seen do, and if you're a cigar noob, it's okay. Now you know. Don't cut the whole torpedo off.
Right. No, okay.
Yeah.
So let me ask this then. So my assumption is, so that's why you do the angle, is so that you can get more exposure without removing the torpedoed end. But what's the torpedoed end doing for you? Is it like pulling a larger area of smoke into a smaller area of smoke? Like, I mean, obviously that's what's happening. Is that on purpose, or what's that serving? What purpose is that serving?
So it is. It's focusing the flavor a little bit heavier there at the end. Cigars are all about like what people don't realize in smoking a cigar, and this should probably be a trivia question. So maybe it will be, and I'll reveal it now for those of you that are still hanging around. Um, the flavor you get from a cigar, you are getting part of that from like literally, putting your mouth on the cigar and smoking it. Like that's part of the experience of the flavor you're getting. That's why a lot of people say the heavy part of the flavor is the wrapper, because you're also like you're tasting it when you put it in your
Mm-hmm.
mouth. Like that, it just makes sense. So I think that's part of it. I don't know if there's super big science. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know if there's a super big science behind it. I know most people, it's really just preference.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's really just a little bit of marketing to add a little uniqueness to the cigar. But I know so I know that's a big reason why people will do it. Is it looks cool. It's kind of catches the eye. It is part of the reason why we chose a torpedo for the Onward Dreams middleweight champ that we just launched.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also probably a mouthfeel thing. Honestly, now that I'm just sitting here trying to just like think about it, I think it's a mouthfeel thing too. I do like smoking torpedoes. That's why I'm sitting here trying to say like I've never really thought to myself like why do I like a torpedo more than a regular? And I
Mm-hmm.
think maybe it's a mouthfeel thing too.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, because I'm like, you could like if you just chopped the whole torpedo off, you'd basically have a flat cut, but it might unravel your cigar. But I'm like that
Correct.
I imagine that's why the angle is a thing. You still have the torpedo shape, but you're still getting the more exposed tobacco. That was just where my brain went with it.
And I can
Um,
tell you when they last thing, and then we'll move on. When
yeah.
they put the wrapper on the cigar and they put the cap on, which is the top kind of piece of tobacco, if you will. Sometimes it's multiples, sometimes double cap, triple cap on a cigar. We'll get into that later, but they do really reinforce the top of a torpedo because they know you're going to be kind of biting down on it, smoking it. So there's a lot of kind of extra support up there for you to be able to smoke it. So if you cut it off, highly likely it's going to unravel. Highly likely.
Okay. Good to know. I've done that. I mean, this is one of those things where when you're a noob, there's no shame in it. Where I've done that with just like a normal cigar, you chop way too much off, and then you're smoking it,
Hmm.
and you're like, "How do people enjoy this? The thing's falling apart. I got tobacco in my teeth. What's going on right now?" And
Yep.
that's just what happens if you cut too much off.
Another benefit of the V cut, no
Mm-hmm.
tobacco in your teeth at all.
All right.
Very clean smoke.
I stalled long enough to come up with my my ratings.
Yep. I
So,
actually had mine going through pretty quickly, so
oh,
I'm
good,
good to
good.
go.
I had to revisit the Dead Rabbit because, as suspected, once I went back to it, I caught on a little bit more to what was going on because I had some perspective of the other whiskeys. So I think if I had to guess, we're gonna have the same rankings. So I'll just give you all three. I had Michters and then Dead Rabbit and then Barrell Seagrass because the Michters, I mean, as we said, it kind of got muted. And then that little bit of bitterness that just brought it down to the bottom for me. Great, great whiskey that I love. Just didn't go with this cigar. The Dead Rabbit, when I went back to it, you're right. It cranks up the body of it, which made it super interesting. I mean, it was weird. Like, I don't usually get that much body from an Irish whiskey. So that actually brought it up higher than I thought it was going to be in my ratings. And then Barrel Seagrass. You guys know me. You know I love Barrel Seagrass, and that's just the way that it is. There's not much more to say about that.
Yep. Nope. I 100% agree all the way through. The Michters was just odd and unfortunately not in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
Typically I love odd. It just didn't seem to work. And we're gonna find pairings. I'm actually happy, and I feel sorry for Michters because I that they're the you know one that had to land in the wrong spot here because again good whiskey, but I'm glad we found a bad pairing that
Yeah.
just didn't work. Like it's okay. Like that's the kind of the other side of this goal. We do want to help you guys find good pairings. So if we find 3 bad ones, we're gonna feel bad on a podcast because we're gonna say, well, we're trying to help you find good ones, but at least you know what not to drink now.
Right.
And so there's direction. So I think the Discord will be a very big play here. So all of you guys help us out, find some good pairings with this Maceda cigar. I'll go ahead and start off
Hmm.
the ratings here. Where do you want to start?
Let's start at the bottom, and then we'll work our
Okay.
way into the better.
I have a 4 flat for the Michters.
Ooh, okay. 4 flat. So I know I say I always write them down so I can't change them, but when you mentioned how it kind of fell flat, I was rethinking the bitterness in my mind. So I am going to change it. I reserve the right to do that. I had a 5.5, and then the aftertaste kind of lingered in my mouth. And I'm not going to go down to a 4 flat, but I am going to go to a 4.9 because I am going to put that on the side of I would veer away from it. And that's what
Wouldn't
we
do it
said.
again.
Under 5, I'm probably not going to do it again. And I think this falls in that range. So I got a 4.9.
Yep. I thought about the 4.9 and I kind of went with my gut on. I was just disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know, and I don't like being disappointed. So I don't think that try what you want. If you love this whiskey, let us know. If you were like this is your favorite whiskey of all time, and you loved it, maybe you can influence us a little bit. But yeah.
Yeah.
Moving on to the Dead Rabbit. This one was tough. This one,
Yeah.
I mean, there's a wide range that we could have gone on. What I'm gonna say here is, I'm gonna say a 6 flat.
Okay.
I'm gonna say I didn't hate it. A lot of room for improvement. Very intriguing. Maybe I'm feeling today maybe just wasn't an Irish whiskey day for me for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think that there is something at play here where the cigar was probably too much for it. Like it
Yeah.
probably just isn't the best pairing. So all of that included led me to a 6, even though I love Dead Rabbit and obviously I love Maceda.
Yeah, so I went a little higher for it, and I went higher when I went back and revisited it. Like before we did our rankings, I was like, go back through, try all 3 of them, and I went back and I thought, man, it really is an interesting one for me, and maybe this is because I'm so used to Irish whiskeys being a little bit more tame, but I put it at a 7.1, which is kind of high, but I thought, there's something really interesting happening that I didn't expect. And the idea with the cigar getting a little bit more mild, I also liked because I think in the right circumstance, that's what I would be looking for, even though I just said how much I love how spicy the barrel combo is. But in the right circumstance, it made the cigar a little bit more mild. The Dead Rabbit had this interesting, basically just didn't yield as much as I expected it to. And so I'm sticking with a 7.1 for that.
Fair. With this, now I'll say this is also a tough one. This cigar added a little bit of intrigue. Again, super intrigued with the Discord today to see where this lands. Super intrigued. I'm gonna have my eye when we launch this as the cigar of the week. So guys, don't let us down. Do a pairing. Let us know.
Yes.
But I'm gonna go, and I'm not gonna change it. I was thinking in my head. I'm like, I think maybe. I'm going an 8.1 on this. For whatever reason, I was thinking an 8. And I was like, it's a little better than that. Because the sweetness is there. It's just subtle. And I love the sweetness. And I love the Barrell Seagrass. And I liked how they played with each other. So I was like, all right, 8.1. Fine.
There's a lot of benefit to this lineup. And there's 2 things. The first is if we just constantly talked about pairings that we loved, you guys would think that we're making this up and that we are just messing with you. And we had a couple pairings that we weren't too big of fans of. The second thing is I like when we have a little bit of disagreement. And I know I was super excited by the pairing, but I actually only put it at 7.5. The main reason being those other whiskeys we talked about, the old line and something super oaky. I'm like, man, I feel like those would be total home runs. And for that reason, I talked myself down. I went the opposite direction. I was like, I really like this. I'm really loving this. And I was like, but nothing super crazy happened. Like, it got very elevated. It tasted really good, but nothing where I was like, whoa, what's going on? Oh my gosh, happened, in my opinion. And so I put it at 7.5, actually.
I think maybe a part of the thought process to give you guys a little insight on our thinking is looking at, I went from 4, 6, 8, and it felt like a very comfortable 2 points in between each of these in my head. So I was kind of like, maybe there's like the 8 was less oomph than it was kind of distancing itself from, in my head, in my own ratings, in my own little world that I'm living in, away from the dead rabbit. Because I do think in my, like where I was at, as I was like, well, it was better than the dead rabbit for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I wanted to give it a little. That's why I didn't go in the 7s. So, yeah. There you go. There's our psychology, guys, and
Right.
we already have the question of the week answered. So this has been a decently long episode. So I think, Chris, this is a great place to go ahead and just drag it on as
Yeah.
long as we can.
I've really been wanting to just dive into exactly what a bourbon whiskey is, so I'm going to walk through it. You grow corn in a field. No, I'm kidding. I want to round this out by saying all those whiskeys that we mentioned, or if you've got any in your head because you had 2 of these cigars and you smoked one, you said, I got to try this whiskey with it next time. Please throw them in the Discord. I'm really interested to see what you guys say. If I try this with more whiskeys, I myself will be throwing them into the Discord and letting you know my thoughts.
Yep, me as well. Well, Chris, until next time, man. Cheers.
Cheers.